Welcome to Comic Power. I am your host, Comic Killer 72. Welcome to Wicked Wednesday, where we discuss all the new comics that's coming out this week. Every Wednesday is like Christmas for us nerds because that's when the new comics come out. These are my recommendations for the best books to pick up on Wednesday. But here's some other information first. Here in the United States, it's Independence Day, so happy 4th of July, everybody. So cheer on USA, blow up some fireworks, and eat bad food. And play the Team America song, America F yeah. I also want to let you guys know about alerts. When you go to the top of the homepage and click on alerts, it'll be checked and say, send me all notifications for this channel. And that will tip you off when a new video is up. Publishers know everyone's celebrating the holiday, so it's a pretty weak week, but we still got some good finds. And DC Comics is giving us, first up is Bane Conquest, number 3 of a 12-part miniseries. This is using the comic book formula of a villain and a hero uniting to fight a common enemy. You've seen that a million times, but it's pretty cool because Graham Knoll and Chuck Dixon, the original creators of Bane in the first place, are reuniting to do this miniseries. Next up is Batman number 24, and this issue contained the novelty of Batman asking Catwoman to marry him. The mainstream press got a hold of this story, and casual viewers that don't usually buy comics bought this. So the first print sold out and went up in value almost overnight. I believe it's a novelty, and if you want to sell this and make some money, go ahead and flip it and get out of it because it won't hold. Batman's print run is high, so there's too many of these out there to stay valuable. To make sure you get what you're looking for, the first print looks like this, the second print looks like this, and the third print coming out this week looks like this. Got it? Good. That brings us to Batman number 26. This is part 2 of a war of jokes and riddles where the Joker and the Riddler are after each other. This just proves that issue number 24 was a novelty because you can see they've moved on from that storyline already. Batman comes out every 2 weeks and it's a must pick up because Tom King is really killing it as the writer. It took about 20 issues to get going, but now it's really good. Next up is Deathstroke number 21, and this is part 1 of a new storyline called Defiance, where he has a new team behind him, a black and white uniform. And he has emerged from the Speed Force, a changed man. So they might be trying to make him a hero instead of a villain / anti-hero. Next up is Harley Quinn number 23, and there's tension between Harley, Poison Ivy, and the Red Tool. The Frank Cho variants continue, and they only get better and better. If you're collecting Harley Quinn, then these 1-for-1 variants are the ones you should be getting. I predict that people will be seeking these out in the future and will be willing to pay a premium for them. Next up is He-Man Thundercats, which is going to trade paperback. This includes all 6 issues of this incredible miniseries. I'm still trying to figure out how we got 5 Transformer movies but haven't gotten a Thundercats or He-Man movie yet. It doesn't make any sense. People love these 2 properties, especially together. Skeletor is one of the best villains in all of fantasy science fiction, by the way. Next up is the Wonder Woman Golden Age Omnibus hardcover volume 2. This collects some of her best stories in her early years in the 1940s. Including Comic Calicave number 6 through 13, Sensation Comics number 25 through 48, and Wonder Woman issue number 8 through 15. Shown here is something not in the omnibus. It's the first original sketch of Wonder Woman back in the early 1940s as a prototype. She's the original strong female heroine, and it all starts right here. As for the omnibus, the price on it is $75, but Things from Another World is selling it for $60. With the success of her live action movie, Wonder Woman is more popular than ever now, and there's 75 years plus of history to explore here. Next up is Cyborg number 14, and this character deserves more respect as well. He's a member of the Justice League now and will be in the live action movie. The events take place here as a aftermath of the Singularity storyline where they visit planet Anomaly, where all life takes the form of soulless cybernetic hybrids. If you like the science fiction of Isaac Asimov, then you should be reading stuff like Cyborg because it's in that class. Next up, let's see what Marvel is up to, and that's going to be Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe Again, number 1. This is nothing new. Marvel did a miniseries about this back in 2012. They're just going back to the well because it was so successful. And you know Marvel's strategy, if you like something once, then 50 times is even better, according to them. Here, have some more. And Deadpool is such a satirical character, you can do literally anything with him, and Marvel has an infinite number of alternative universes where anything and everything can happen, so there you go. This is issue 1 of a 5-part miniseries. Next up is Empress, which is going to a trade paperback. This is written by Mark Millar, and it collects all 7 issues of this miniseries. Mark isn't as creative as he used to be. He's hopelessly derivative, and he rips off Flash Gordon, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, and other space operas. He's not even trying hard anymore. But if you're a Mark Millar fan, then this is the best way to get this collection. Next up is The Champions number 10, and this should be called the Young Avengers because they were all previously Avengers, but these teen superheroes had a falling out with the older members, so they had a splinter group and they called it the Champions. It has the look and feel of an animated series that's waiting to happen. I bet you it will in the future. Champions 1 has a very high print run, and stores over-ordered it, so you should be able to get one for $1 in their back issue bins to figure out what's going on and hold on to it in case something happens with the Champions in the animated series, because the price could go up. Next up is Jessica Jones number 10, and the best thing going for this series are the David Mack watercolor covers. And unfortunately, issue number 10 is probably the worst one he's done. Compared to issue number 1 shown here and some other previous issues with outstanding covers, I would say that issue number 10 is subpar for his standard. Issue 10 does have this Martin Simmons variant who gives us a graffiti mural type of variant, which is way better than what David Mack is giving us on cover A, so get this one. Next up is Steve Rogers Captain America number 17, which is going to a second print. It's a Secret Empire tie-in, and people are either exhausted with this way overreaching crossover or they're pissed off at the premise. But my job isn't to make the news, it's just to report it. Next up is Star Wars number 33, and this is the best quality thing that Marvel has on their roster in terms of writing and art the way it's supposed to be. They're screwing up a lot of their titles, but this is not it, and this is Star Wars canon, by the way. It fills in the gaps between the movies. This takes place after New Hope and before Empire. The 40th anniversary variants shown here are also continuing, and they're also doing the action figure variants, but they're running out of characters to use, so they're going deep into the roster of unknowns. At the time I made this video, we're just a few days away from Spider-Man Homecoming, and I can't wait, baby. So Marvel is going to throw a ton of Spider-Man at us, and that's fine, because I'm ready for it. First up is Spider-Man number 18, and this is the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man, and he takes on Hammerhead in this. Next up is Spider-Man Master Plan number 1. This is a reprinting of Amazing Spider-Man number 2 from 1963, where he takes on the Vulture. It's just a different cover than the original. Next up is True Believers Amazing Fantasy, starring Spider-Man. This is a reprint of Amazing Fantasy number 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. The cover is drawn by Jack Kirby, interior art by Steve Ditko, and written by Stan Lee. It doesn't get any better than that. Next up is True Believers Spider-Man number 1. This is the early 90s reboot where they let Todd McFarlane write and draw Spider-Man. And that cover, of course, is one of the most swiped covers ever. Next up is Spider-Man Brand New Day, which tries to correct the problems that happened in One More Day. It's too complicated to talk about. And by the way, all these Spider-Man reprints are selling for just $1 this week. You can't beat that price. Hopefully stores will have one per customer so people don't try to hoard them. Next up is Weapon X number 3, which is going to a second print. You should be reading this series, folks. It's really that good. I named Weapon X number 1 from April 2017 the pick of the week. It still should be available out there for cover price, so go ahead and pick it up and start from the beginning. It's really fantastic. Marvel also has a hit with X-Men Gold. Due to time constraints, I'm going to do it this way. Issue number 2 is going to a second print variant. Number 3 is going to a second print variant. Number 4 is going to a second print variant. And issue number 7 first print comes out this week as well. Next up is our report on independent comics and small publishers. First up is Baby Teeth number 2 from Aftershock Comics. This is the story of a 16-year-old girl whose baby is the Antichrist. It's written by Donny Cates, who's on fire this year because he's the same guy who's authoring God Country and Redneck. This is clearly his breakout year. I named Baby Teeth number 1 the pick of the week for June 7th, 2017, by the way. Donny Cates has taken familiar themes in action, horror, science fiction, and giving them a fresh, up-to-date spin. Next up, and also from Aftershock Comics, is Unholy Grail number 1 from the master of horror, Cullen Bunn. He too takes familiar themes and reworks them. In this version, King Arthur is actually evil in the Excalibur tale. There's an extremely limited San Diego Comic-Con variant out there, and people are asking about $60 for it on eBay, but I don't see any completed sales yet. My advice to all my subscribers is never pay this type of money for an unproven variant. You'll pay $60 for it, and it'll wind up dropping to like $25 to $30. And you'll feel gypped. Next up is the Unsound number 2 from Boom Studios. This is part 2 of a 4-part miniseries, and this too is written by Cullen Bunn. It's a horror tale taking place in an insane asylum. Cullen Bunn never sleeps. He's like a vampire that stays up all night and writes comics. Next up is Kiss Vampirilla number 2 of a 5-part miniseries from Dynamite Entertainment. This is a pretty cool mashup of 2 horror properties. Kiss is a real-life rock band that was started in the 1970s in New York, and Vampirilla is a fictional character that started in a magazine in 1969. This would have been a whole lot cooler if it happened back in the 1970s, but both properties will have their audience that buys this. It's just not for everybody. Next up is Claudia and Rex #1 from new publisher Lion Forge. It's a story of two African American sisters that have to travel through a world of supernatural fantasy. You've seen coming of age stories in strange lands, but you probably have never seen it with African American leads, especially this young. They're depicted to be about 10 to 13 years old. It's a 3-part miniseries worth taking a chance on to see how they handle the material. Next up is Jazz Maynard #2 from Magnetic Press, which is associated with Lion Forge. It's the story of a jazz musician that must go underground to save his sister from the sex trafficking business. Next up is Bloodshot's Day Off #1 from Valiant Comics. This is a one-shot based on characters that were introduced in Bloodshot #14, called Tank Man and Viet Man. They were early Bloodshot prototypes, that's why they have the circle on their chest. So after fighting endless wars and missions for decades, finally they get some freedom, but of course they run into trouble again. If this was only about their day off, that would be a pretty boring comic, don't you think? This isn't for everybody either, it's only for hardcore Bloodshot followers. Next up, let's see what Image Comics is up to, and that's always something great. First up is Extremity #5. I've recommended this every month that it comes out. It's a bloody revenge tale of war in a fantasy world. The lead character is Thea, who used to be an artist, and she can no longer draw because she had her hand cut off, but she goes on to become the tribe's fiercest warrior. Next up is Rat Queens #4, and it's a spoof of fantasy worlds that sometimes take themselves too seriously. It got a new permanent artist back in March and rebooted itself back to issue #1. If you play WoW or watch Game of Thrones, this is good comic relief for stuff like that. Next up is Sacred Creatures #1. It's the story of a young college grad who's caught up in the middle of a vast conspiracy that could threaten the whole world. As myth and reality collide. The first issue is double-sized at 66 pages, so they got a big story to tell. It doesn't have a name writer or artist on it, so this is the type of material that comic shops underorder and could become a surprise hit. Next up is Seven to Eternity #7, another sci-fi epic from Rick Remender. It's just what he does. He's so good at this. It feels like it came out of nowhere in 2016 and blew up, but he's been putting out great stuff for a long time, like Low and Deadly Class and Tokyo Ghost. He's been critically acclaimed for a long time. He was just due for a big hit, and he finally got one. Speaking of Tokyo Ghost, the deluxe complete edition comes out on trade paperback this week. It collects the whole 10-issue run of this incredible miniseries. It takes place about 80 years in the future where everyone is addicted to technology. It's almost like a drug. Next up is The Wicked Divine #29. I urge you to get a trade paperback on this because you're going to have no idea what the heck is going on if you try to pick it up now. In a nutshell, it's the story of pagan gods from the past that inhabit the bodies of young people to influence the public, and they decide to become pop stars because in the modern day, that's how you control people's minds. Next up is the speculation pick of the week. And that's going to be The Walking Dead #169. This is part 1 of a new story arc called Lines We Cross. The comic is about 3 years ahead of where the TV show is, and they're taking material from the comic and being very faithful to it when they adapt it for television. You should be getting The Walking Dead every month that it comes out. It's still fantastic, and especially when there's the start of a new story arc. You never know what material they're going to use for the television series, and then the back issue source from the comics will go up in value. The Walking Dead is the closest thing you have to a sure thing in investing in comics in modern day. It's probably the biggest thing to debut in the last 20 years in pop culture. That's it for Image, but the report isn't over with yet. We still got more to talk about. Next up is Stained #3 of a 5-part miniseries from 451 Media. This is the comic publisher that's linked to director Michael Bay, and people are speculating that they're using these stories to develop for future television and movie projects. Virtually all of them have been very good. The paper quality, the writing, the art, they've all been fantastic. Definitely worth paying attention to. Next up is Motor Girl #7 from Abstract Studios. It's the story of a female military veteran who has a junkyard that gets infested by aliens. Her sidekick and friend is a gorilla named Mike that only she can see. It's by Terry Moore, the same guy that gave us Rachel Rising. Next up is Killbox Chicago #1 from American Gothic Press. This is the follow-up to the previous Killbox miniseries released in 2016. It's critically acclaimed but overlooked by the public. It's the story of different organized crime factions that are at war. Next up is Lady Mechanica Clockwork Assassin #1. This is the leading comic about steampunk, and Joe Benitez is the publisher and writer and artist on this. He's a very busy guy. All the adventures of Lady Mechanica are usually 3 or 4 issue miniseries. Next up is Mindbender #1 from Scout Comics, which is going to a second print. It's the story of a young man that witnesses the horrendous death of his parents to an explosion. He goes comatose for 16 years, and then he comes out of it and he has massive superpowers. The first 4-second print will be hard to find. Scout has a very tiny print run. Next up is Casper, the Friendly Ghost #1 from American Mythology Productions. The artwork mimics from his original look back in the day, but these are new adventures. It's worth picking up #1 for nostalgia purposes. You know the drill. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, and share these videos on social media so others learn about Comic Power. That's about it for today. Thank you for watching Wicked Wednesday, where I review all the new comic books for a new comic day. Be sure to follow my blog at comicpower.net. On social media, follow me at facebook.com/comicpower.net and comicpower-universe.tumblr.com. And don't forget twitter.com/comicpowersub. I also sell comics on eBay at this link. This is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye. And don't forget to share this video, click on subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and tell everyone you know about this channel to help it grow. Thank you for your support.